Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Welcome back, everyone. And again, it is Friday, and that means FOMO Friday here on the podcast. We want to dispense of that fear of missing out that you may have because you're not watching propaganda media. And we want to bring you the stories of the week that you should probably know about, or at least a little bit about, right? And so from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this very first one. And you've probably heard a little bit about Greenland, which isn't so green, by the way. Iceland isn't so icy. Greenland's not so green. They're kind of opposites. They should trade names. But anyway, President Donald Trump has been talking about Greenland and wanting to have it become part of the United States or something along those lines. Well, President Donald Trump said on Thursday that under the framework of a plan currently being negotiated between his administration and NATO, the United States would be given total access, as he put it, to Greenland at no cost. Yeah, Trump told Fox Business that under the proposal, the United States is getting everything we want at no cost. The president said that Greenland is vital for the United States national security and will be used for a piece of the Golden Dome missile defense system. Quote, everything comes over Greenland. If the bad guys start shooting, it comes over Greenland, he said, adding, it's pretty invaluable. So what we're talking about, an acquisition of Greenland, said Fox Business host Maria Bartiromo. She said, are you going to pay for it? And Trump said, it's really being negotiated now, the details of it. But essentially, it's total access. There's no end. There's no time limit. Trump spoke to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Davos on Wednesday and announced shortly after the meeting that they worked out a framework for a deal on Greenland. Rutte confirmed that the United States and NATO have made significant progress towards current securing an agreement covering the large territory that Denmark oversees. Now, Rutte said on Thursday that as part of the deal, NATO allies will have to increase their military presence in the Antarctic region. It remains unclear if Greenland and Denmark support the deal currently under the negotiation. Danish leaders have strongly opposed Trump's push to acquire the territory, while Greenlandic leaders have said they don't want to become part of the United States. Trump has been pushing for the United States to acquire Greenland since returning to the White House last January, and he has increased pressure on Greenland, of course, Denmark, and other European nations over the issue in recent weeks. Now, the president believes that Greenland is essential for the United States national security, arguing that China and Russia will take over the territory if the United States doesn't. And Trump told Bartiromo on Thursday that it's still possible that the United States will end up controlling Greenland. During his speech at the World Economic Forum on Wednesday, Trump said he would not use military force to annex the territory. While Trump says national security is the main reason for his desire to acquire Greenland, rare earth materials, minerals, and those type of things also play a role in his push. Rare earth minerals were also part of the framework agreement with NATO, the president said. Trump's U.S. ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, who began in the administration as the president's national security advisor, said last January that the United States needed Greenland for its critical minerals as well as national security. Now, Greenland holds large deposits of these rare earth materials that could play a key role in America's push to to ramp up rare earth mining and end the dependence on China. But Greenland's underdeveloped tundra would be challenging to mine for these minerals. This is what The Hill reported, saying, quote, everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many, Trump said on Wednesday. There's so much, there's no such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing, but there's so much rare earth. And to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. So yeah, there's I guess it's probably good news that it looks like we will have access to Greenland and not have to make it the 51st state, I guess, right? um, I heard somebody ask, if we did make it the 51st state, are we going to add another star to the flag? I guess that would be, that would probably be what we'd have to do. And could we make the star green for Greenland? I don't know. Anyway, we'll keep a close eye on that. Keeping a close eye, I told you we would be doing this with the Clintons. Well, the House Oversight Committee voted on Monday to hold former President Bill Clinton and his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, in contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with the subpoenas. And 8 Democrats voted against the measure. Now, this is interesting, right? I mean, obviously, they're Democrats and they want to vote against the measure, but to actually do it is kind of interesting in itself. The 8 Democrats who voted against it, meaning that they voted to allow the Clintons to ignore the subpoenas without penalty at all, were Representatives Wesley Bell, these are all Democrats, Shontel Brown, Robert Garcia, Ro Kahana, Weezy Mfume, Eleanor Holmes Norton, Suhas Subramanyama, and James Walkinshaw. I believe I pronounced all those right. Maybe not the one, but anyway, they're all Democrats. They're all voting against this. And George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley laid out his thoughts on this situation, naming the Democrats who voted against efforts to hold the Clintons to account. The Clintons were issued subpoenas after some of the most recent photos of documents released pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act shed a rather unflattering, let's put it that way, light on the former President Clinton's association with the late convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. As some noted, the Representative Ro Hanna has been particularly insistent on getting to the bottom of everything and getting a full release of the Epstein documents, a fact that caused several eyebrows to raise when he was also among the Democrats suggesting that it was fine for the Clintons to disregard congressional subpoenas on the matter. So again, if the liberal Democrats didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. Here he's rallying when he thinks that Trump is a part of the Epstein files. Oh man, we have to have everything out there. Transparency. And yet when it looks like Clinton is kind of caught up in a lot of this, and that's what's come about with some of the release of the Epstein files. Oh, well, yeah, they don't have to show up for a subpoena to talk about it. The Clintons responded to the subpoenas with a lengthy letter explaining why they should not have to comply with requests to submit to the legal process. The Clintons said in the letter that they believed the subpoenas to be invalid and had already given Congress all the information that they had. There is no plausible explanation. This is a quote from their letter. It says, "There's no plausible explanation for what you are doing other than partisan politics." Now, the Oversight Committee chair, James Comer, he's the Republican from Kentucky, he made it clear that he was not impressed, saying, quote, "They have had 5 months to comply with this. We expect to hear from Bill Clinton, and he is not above the law," which is, again, in reference to the liberal Democrats' mantra of, The president, Trump, not being above the law. Nobody's above the law, right? Well, you're right. Nobody's above the law, including Bill Clinton. So anyway, we'll keep an eye and see what happens there. I think I hear some chance of, jail her up or something like that. Like they used to chant for Hillary. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Speaking of Democrats going to jail, or maybe not to jail, a federal judge refused to sign a complaint against former CNN host Don Lemon for his alleged role in storming a Minnesota church service on Sunday with a mob of anti-ICE agitators. Attorney General Pam Bondi was enraged, as they put it, at the magistrate judge's refusal to sign the charges. A source familiar with the proceedings told the Daily Wire this. Federal authorities made 3 arrests of protesters who allegedly took part in targeting the church over a pastor accused of serving as an ICE chief in Minnesota. Lemon was seen on video at the protest under the guise of covering it as an independent journalist. Yeah. If you're an independent journalist, you can do whatever you want, right? U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, however, said Monday that freedom of the press does not extend to, quote, being part of the group that storms inside a church, unquote, in reference, of course, to Lemon. Quote, freedom of the press extends to a lot of different areas, Blanche told Fox News' Will Cain. He said it does not extend to somebody just trespassing and being embedded with a group of rioters and being part of the group that storms inside a church. The fact that Mr. Lemon thought that was a good idea and then raced away from it saying it was freedom of the press, well, we'll see, he says. Yeah, we'll see. Assistant Attorney of Civil Rights Hamit Dillon hinted on Monday that charges could be brought against Lemon for his alleged involvement, saying Don Lemon himself has come out and said he knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. He went into the facility and then he began committing journalism, as he put it, as if that's sort of a shield from being a part, an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't, she told the podcaster Benny Johnson on Monday. We played a little bit of that this week on the podcast. Dillon also said that the Justice Department was looking into possible violations of the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, or the FACE Act, which has long been weaponized against pro-life protesters, and the Ku Klux Klan Act. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, a Republican who represents Minnesota, told the Daily Wire that Lemon, whom he called that failed reporter, that loser, that Lemon loser, should face accountability for joining the mob. Quote, they've been led to believe that this type of behavior is acceptable. I mean, we've got Minnesota Democrat Governor Tim Walz and the Attorney General Keith Ellison literally doing everything they can to obstruct the lawful actions of federal law enforcement, Emmer said. Despite facing pushback from the judge, the Trump administration is reportedly exploring other avenues to charge Lemon. Following the demonstration, Lemon slammed the Christian worshipers as people entitled by white supremacy. He says, because he's a black gay man, so he should know. During a press conference on Tuesday, President Donald Trump called Lemon a loser and lightweight and allegedly taking part in the protests. He said, I saw him. The way he walked in that church was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. This is what Trump said. He said he was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible. 3 others actually have been indicted already. This came down on Thursday. And so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that and see what happens to Don Lemon as well. Well, speaking of Trump, he's doing some really good things on the abortion front. This is really, really good. You got to hear this. President Donald Trump's administration is ending the use of human fetal tissue in federally funded research. This, according to the Daily Wire. And they said that effective immediately, National Institutes of Health funds will no longer be used for research that involves the fetal tissue of aborted babies. That policy will apply to all NIH grants, cooperative agreements, transaction awards, research and development contracts, and the NIH intramural research program. Now, the move is a significant win for the pro-life movement. It really is, which has long pushed for the United States to respect the dignity of the unborn, whose tissue is bought by researchers after abortions. Under the first Trump administration, the president banned intramural use of aborted fetal tissue, meaning research conducted within the United States governmental facilities. Well, this time, Trump's NIH is going further, stating that it will not fund any research involving tissue from aborted babies. Now, the Institute frames the move as a significant milestone in the Trump administration's efforts to modernize biomedical science and accelerate innovation, but it comes just one day before the annual March of Life, which is really nice. A significant nod to the pro-life Americans gathering in Washington who have worked for years to arrive at this moment. Quote, NIH is pushing American biomedical science into the 21st century. This is what the NIH director said on Thursday. And the director is Jay Bonachari. Now, this decision is about advancing science by investing in breakthrough technologies more capable of modeling human health and disease. Under President Trump's leadership, taxpayer-funded research must reflect the best science of today and the values of the American people. Get this. This was actually eye-opening for me. Only 77 projects using human fetal tissue were funded by NIH during the fiscal year of 2024. This is declining steadily since 2019. NIH says simultaneously other advances offer alternatives that can drive discovery while reducing ethical concerns, and advances in tissue chips. Computational biology and organoids and other platforms. So basically, what he's saying is we don't really have a need for fetal tissue for research any longer. We have technology now that is far exceeding that kind of stuff. So it's not something that we're learning anything about. In an interview with the Daily Wire editor emeritus Ben Shapiro, Bhattacharya noted that the use of human fetal tissue from aborted babies has sparked arguments for years, putting a large part of the population in an ethical quandary, right? Given the significant advances in science and the plethora of alternatives, he said, there is no reason to put Americans in a position that might violate their conscience. Saying, quote, now that there is better technology, there's no scientific harm to this, we're still going to be able to use the science we need, while at the same time getting rid of the use of aborted fetal tissue, which so many people, including me, he says, find morally abhorrent. He also pointed out that tissue can still be used for NIH-funded research if it is not specifically from an abortion. He says, quote, someone who has had a miscarriage and wants to do a meaningful thing, and they donate the tissue from the miscarriage to science, that's still allowed, he told Shapiro. The only ban is on you have an abortion, specifically to terminate the baby, and then the tissue gets sold. That's what's being banned. Now, the administration views the move as evidence of its commitment to both scientific excellence and responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars, ensuring that the United States is still the global leader in biomedical innovation, while at the same time staying true to the values of the American people. Bhattacharya, he stressed this point, reminding Shapiro that certain coronavirus vaccines were developed using embryonic stem cells. He says, and I think this was a good point. He says, I heard from so many people during the pandemic, Catholics and others, who had qualms about using this technology because they did not want to be gaining from what their moral system said was the fruit of the poisonous tree. And he says, I completely sympathize with them. In public health and in science, we should seek to produce knowledge and products that are widely available for everybody. He continued by saying, if there are large numbers of people with moral systems that say if you go down this line and use research with aborted human fetal tissue, I'm not going to participate in it. Well, that what good is the research then? If you, I mean, in other words, if the research is based off of fetal tissue and I am morally against it, I'm not going to use that research, then what good is the research, right? As abortions in the United States became more common, the use of aborted baby bodies for research sparked national controversy. And in the early 2000s, then Senator Rick Santorum, he introduced the Fetus Farming Prohibition Act of 2006, banning any person or entity involved in interstate commerce from soliciting or knowingly acquiring, receiving, or accepting a donation of human fetal tissue obtained through an abortion. President George W. Bush signed that bill into law in 2006, July of 2006. But anxieties over the use of aborted baby bodies continued past that. And in 2015 and 2016, undercover pro-life activist David Danielson, the head of the Center of Medical Progress, he published videos allegedly showing Planned Parenthood officials describing how they extracted aborted baby body parts and joked about compensation for them. Of course, he alleged that the videos proved Planned Parenthood was selling the aborted baby body parts for profit, and Planned Parenthood said that he was lying and sued him, accusing him of deceptively editing the videos, and claimed they were only reimbursed for costs, meaning the expenses incurred in transportation or delivery of those parts. After heavy backlash, Planned Parenthood announced in 2015 that they would no longer accept reimbursements for those costs, and Danielson suffered through almost a decade of legal battles led by the California Attorney General's office and headed at the time by, yep, you guessed it, Kamala Harris. You remember that, right? Xavier Barcarella, who would go on to become Joe Biden's Health and Human Services Secretary, carried on the legal battle against Danielson after Harris left office. And so, yeah, I mean, he had to pay the price for telling the truth. And yet, it came out good. It came out in a positive manner. And now we're at the point where Donald Trump has actually made it so the NIH will no longer fund in any way research based on fetal tissue. That's awesome, right? Well, Donald Trump did go to to Davos, and if Davos sounds anything familiar, then you probably know that the World Economic Forum is held there. Well, this piece came up from Michael Knowles, and I thought it kind of interesting because you probably have not seen this on the propaganda media, and that's why you're listening to the podcast, right? Well, he says, what is the broader, deeper vision of the World Economic Forum? Best-selling author Yuval Noah Harari actually sums it up quite well. Harari is close to Klaus Schwab, who, of course, was the longtime head of the World Economic Forum. Harari has effectively become the court intellectual of the WEF, and he has been unusually candid about what he thinks the future holds. Harari has said openly that as we look into the future, the world is going to be run by artificial intelligence. Anything involving language, up to and including the Bible and religion itself, yes, that's what I said, is going to be taken over by AI, he says. In his own words, Harari explains it this way. Here it is. Yuval Noah Harari, speaking at the World Economic Forum, just said that AI will soon take control of the Bible and all the words written in it. The Bible absolutely accepts that challenge. Game on. That's that was a post about that, because and he put a scripture in it with the words of the Lord are pure words as silver tried in a furnace of earth. Yeah, this is what he believes. It says, I've thought about Yuval Harari for a while now, and he could not make himself seem more villainous if he tried. He leans into it. He's auditioning to be the Bond villain. He presents himself as the herald of the end times. Now, to be fair, he's not totally wrong about the influence of AI. AI has crept into all of our lives in one way or another, and we even cooperate with it constantly. In that sense, he's right, but he gets the fundamental things wrong. First of all, he says Jews refer to themselves as the people of the book. That's a half-truth. Some people say it today, but Jews did not originate that phrase. Do you know where people of the book actually comes from? It comes from Islam. It's a phrase from the Quran used to refer to Jews and Christians in an attempt to present Islam as part of that same tradition. People of the book is a Muslim term that Jews and some Protestants later appropriated. But when you really get down to it, setting Islam aside entirely, Judaism and Christianity are not fundamentally religions of the book. They are religions of sacrifice. It is true that since the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, Jews gather and conduct religious services in synagogues, but before that, Judaism was a religion of the temple sacrifice. Christianity, crucially, is also a religion of sacrifice. The centerpiece of Christian worship is the holy sacrifice of the Mass, the blessed sacrament, the Christ in the Holy Eucharist, body, blood, soul, and divinity. None of this diminishes the importance of Scripture. But Pope John Paul II corrected this misunderstanding beautifully when he said that Christianity is not the religion of a book. This is the religion of the Word of God. We are the people of the Word. Yes, we have Holy Scripture, inerrant and authored by God, but the center point of the Word Himself, the Word who became flesh and dwelt among us. So once you understand that, Harari's statement becomes even more jarring. He says that anything involving language, anything involving words, will be taken over and conquered by AI. But if the religion that animates our civilization is the religion of the Word, quote, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, then what Harari is really saying is that AI is going to conquer God. Harari is a smart guy, so he may not be aware that this is exactly what he's saying, even if he doesn't state it explicitly. If he and if he's not aware of it, that somehow makes it even worse. The belief that AI will conquer God is what a lot of liberal humanists, materialists, and atheist globalists, actually believe. This isn't the product of a few years or even a few decades. It's the accumulation of centuries of liberal thought. They intend to make their own God, and AI will be that God, and they will worship it. It's no different from the Old Testament where pagans worship dumb idols that God repeatedly warned them not to worship, lest they become dumb themselves. And that's exactly what's happened. That's why all these fantasy elites who went to elite schools, who have lots of money and impressive jobs, seem so dumb. That's why someone like Yuval Harari, who probably has a very high IQ and has read an enormous number of books, ends up saying things that sound so profoundly foolish. And that's why you end up needing a guy like Trump to barge in and tell them. And that's kind of what he did this week. So anyway, I wanted to end today on a pretty humorous thing. And I don't know if you saw this because it was from Not the Bee. It was a post, and it said this, says, "This is one of the best things I've seen in a long time. The folks at Blue Lives Matter decided to do a little righteous trolling, and it was completely spectacular." It says this is the post. I'm going to read the post, and it says, "We're not saying that Blue Lives Matter was behind feeding false information to far-left anti-ICE protesters. We're not saying that we had teams comprised of hundreds of off-duty cops and veteran volunteers who run decoy operations so far-left activists thought they were conducting ICE raids. We're not saying that they were just driving around in what appeared to be unmarked vehicles with tinted windows, drinking coffee and listening to Guns N' Roses, being chased down and surrounded by protesters. What we are saying is that if it did happen, it sure worked remarkably well in 9 different states, allowing actual raids to successfully take place unimpeded, helping support the capture of hundreds of criminals. Combat veterans, off-duty officers, and patriotic Americans have had enough of the radical left and are being activated across the country to back our law enforcement. And they're smarter, more skilled, more driven, better trained than the left, and actually enjoy sitting in a deer stand for days on end just waiting." This is totally amazing. I mean, it's just really, really, really cool. And if they said here, it says, if the lawless protesters have so much time on their hands that they're willing to use it chasing down law enforcement, then they shouldn't be too mad about wasting their time chasing down retired cops in an absolutely based troll job. That's classic. That is really, really funny. And I just don't understand why liberal Democrats will go to no end to try to keep criminals. And 70% are criminals, not just criminals because they crossed our border, but because they were either convicted outside of our country or inside of our country. 70% of those being deported are those type of people. They're criminals. And the liberal Democrats want to defend that. I don't get it. And this is just awesome. So I'd love to hear from you. You can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.